Ask someone on the street what is leadership, and that person will undoubtedly have a profound thought. It seems as if everyone has an idea on what is leadership. As one prominent scholar, James McGregor Burns, put it, leadership is the most observed but least understood phenomena on Earth. Over the course of the next few minutes, we will try to provide you with some of the basic notions about what leadership is about, all of this from a Western perspective. For most of our history, humankind has been fascinated with the nature of leadership, often through a very leader-centric view. During the 19th century, many believed that leaders were born with certain characteristics. This was also called the great man theory, coined by Thomas Carlyle. After classifying many prominent figures, these studies listed the great men from history that should be emulated. On the foundation of this work, theories of trait leadership came to prominence. Similar to the great man theory, there was an underlying belief that leaders possessed certain characteristics or traits. Psychologists like Gordon Allport believed these traits to be a product of genetic predispositions and experience. Allport and others analyzed words in the dictionaries that described persons in order to create a classification of traits. Researchers at that time looked for certain combinations of traits that were common in successful leaders. But once again, no clear combinations emerged. During the 1940s and 1950s, yet a new perspective on leadership emerged, often referred to as behavioral leadership theories. Instead of looking at mental, physical, or social traits of leaders, researchers looked at leadership behaviors. In other words, they tried to study the actions of leaders. They identified several behaviors they considered to be promising for successful leadership. Many of them also made a distinction between leaders that focused on tasks and leaders that focused on people. More importantly, as leadership was now understood to be a behavior instead of a trait, it was understood to be something that could be taught and learned. However, once again, there seemed to be dead ends. For example, people noticed that a certain leadership behavior might be successful in one situation, but led to poor results in another situation. This paved the way to contingency leadership theories, which arose in the 1960s. The key here was the understanding that leadership behaviors or styles were contingent or dependent on the situation. This also meant that attention was paid not only to the leader, but also to the situation and the followers or employees, though not so much. Transactional and transformational leadership theories are built upon this understanding. Transactional leadership is understood to be a kind of leadership where leaders focus on supervision and control, specify tasks as well as rewards for completing, and punishments for failing to complete said tasks. It's thus something that very much aims to keep a system running through a set of transactions where the leader and follower value each other mutually, but there is not a higher sense of purpose or duty. You do this task, and in return, you'll get that reward. Transformational leadership, on the other hand, is more focused on creating a sense of connectedness to the organization or project, inspiring a reciprocal relationship with the followers, and enabling them to take ownership of their work. It is often associated with instilling change and an uplifting and inspiring set of goals, some of which might be moralistic or ethical. Nowadays, hundreds of styles of leadership have been described, and greater attention is being paid to situations and the relationship between leaders and followers or employees. There are also researchers that say that leadership is distributed or shared across many people, or that leadership can also be understood as something that happens between a group of people. Therefore, leadership today means that we have traveled a far distance from the days of just focusing on individual leaders. So what is leadership about, after all? It is often understood as a process of influencing others in working towards a common goal or shared purpose. Oftentimes, this is connected to things like developing a vision, leading change for strategic growth, offering employees a sense of engagement and empowerment, communicating a set of mutually held values, and finally, making sure it all connects so that everyone feels as if they can thrive and succeed and is pulling in the same direction. Now, such a definition leaves a lot of room for criticism and discussion. For example, what about culture? Does it influence leadership? Is leadership not different in China than it is in Belgium? What about context? Is leading a business the same as leading a school? What about principles and values? Is leadership always something good? And what about free will? Wouldn't leadership go against that? We can't possibly discuss this in one short video, but maybe you can look for answers yourselves. We hope this video was of interest to you and gave you some useful ideas and concepts about leadership.